So yeah, as I was saying, we live in a world where it's the opposite, right? Today, so much closed-mindedness, closed-heartedness, and not so much helping hands. So really wonderful to see the Unitarian Universalist community and holding space here in Denver, and we're grateful for your time that you're with us. Thank you for coming. And also just a few of our friends from University of Denver, down on Evans. We got Max and Nick and Elsa and Davey and Abby. Abby, thanks. So they've been there for a couple years now, holding a space. They have a nice yoga club on campus where every week they get together and do some yoga and meditation. And we've been doing some kirtan throughout the years. It's been really sweet there. It's a small campus, but a very nice group of students. So just really want to welcome them and thank them also for holding a space down at DU and joining us today. We did a little yoga earlier down at our sanctuary space, and we're here for the feast. So this is the future generation. We have the elementary, junior high schoolers, and the university students. Naturally, they're going to be future leaders. And if this combination is their spiritual values and material success, so your bachelor's, your master's, your PhDs, and most important, that spiritual foundation to give substance to really do some good for the world. Para upakara. Para upakara means one who works for the benefit of others. Para upakara. There's a similar phrase in Buddhism, bodhisattva, right? This bodhisattva. So it's there in every tradition. Every sacred tradition has this principle about living for the good of others. Okay, so since we have a few new friends here, I just thought we can just give a little background of this tradition. And I like this phrase, Unitarian Universalist. I was mentioning to them earlier about this word unity or uniform. And one of the youths, maybe mom can reiterate it because maybe your son will be a little shy. But it was really nice. Anyways, I'm forgetting it again. I asked the kids if they can share a reflection of what unity means to them. And could you give me a little gist of what your son shared?
They left, but I believe it was multiple things coming together to be one.
To be one. Multiple things coming together to be one. Yeah, very nice. Ekam. Right? Ekam means this one. So multiple things coming together to become one. So in Sanskrit, there's this term Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana means eternal, and then Dharma means duty. So sometimes this word Dharma, people might translate as religion. But religion has a particular connotation of a particular faith. So we'll go a little bit more into this deeper meaning of Dharma and how it's very relevant to our lives in this day and age. It's not just an ancient historical concept that's relating only to a few yogis and sages, but it's something that's relevant to every living entity. So we'll discuss that a little. And then around 1:20, we'll take a break, close off with a little bit more chanting, and then we'll honor the feast. So we'll recite an Invocation Mantra. If you'd like, I'll say once, and you can repeat if you like. If you'd like to bring your hands to Anjali Mudra or Pranam Mudra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadhaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this point about Sanatana Dharma, I know as a teenager, probably my sophomore year, sophomore year, I started to get into sacred traditions. I had read a few authors like Hermann Hesse. We read Siddhartha in high school. Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. What else did we read? Of Mice and Men. Walden, Civil Disobedience from Emerson and Thoreau. The poetry of Emily Dickinson. So I remember my freshman year and junior year, we read these authors and started to get interested into spiritual culture. Nominally, I was born in Japan, so my father nominally is coming from a Shinto Buddhist tradition. My mother's from northern Spain. She was Catholic. But my upbringing, I wasn't really involved with any religion. Moved here in 1975, I was 4 years old. And never went to church, and it wasn't really so much in our family. It was more nominal as far as my father and mother's influence. And then, my friends would go to church and I would hear about different traditions, but I was quite aloof from it. And then in high school, hearing about these sacred traditions and even in listening to music, I remember my freshman year, I got my first album of Bob Marley and the Wailers. And in that music, there was songs like Exodus and One Love and So Much Trouble in This World, Concrete Jungle, Coming In From the Cold. So many songs that were referencing even biblical passages. And I was like, this sounds quite revolutionary. I didn't listen to so much Jimi Hendrix, but I just learned of a song called Castles Made of Sand. Float into the sea eventually. So this is very much relevant to the philosophy of impermanence, asat. So anyhow, as a teenager, that interest was there, but the last thing I was kind of interested in, I didn't like that feeling of pressure that I had to join a particular religion. And to this day, I still have that same feeling. And one might say, well, hey, you're in robes, you got a shaved head, you look like a monk in a particular tradition. So did you kind of lose that spirit? So the analogy could be given like this. If you're like an athlete, and let's say you were just training loosely without any type of organized team or even a coach or any formation. But you just had a little ball, maybe not even a ball, maybe a wad of newspapers. Like Pele, he was a professional player. When he grew up, they actually used to just roll up paper and fruits and kick a ball around like that in the alleyways of Brazil. So like that, you might play very informally, but you're interested in the game and there's an attraction to the experience. And let's say later on, things get a little bit more formal. You start using a real soccer ball, you have soccer cleats, you might even join a team and have a uniform. And some may just sell out to the competitive, money-making, athletic world. And some may be in that and still keep that spirit that they had when they first started kicking that ball around. And they've maintained that you can say that original sincere spirit they had in just appreciating the game, even while they're in maybe more of a formal environment of a league. And you can take that with music as well. There's incredible musicians who start and then later some do quote unquote sell out and just do it for the money and they're just thinking of the dollar sign. And many still really keep the spirit alive, many of these musicians. And we can see it in their music and in their behavior and in their lifestyle. And so similarly with sacred traditions, many of us, we started out not so much with an interest to, I wasn't interested in just becoming a Christian or Hindu or Jewish or Buddhist or this or that. As much as I remember at 18, I wasn't interested in becoming either Democrat or Republican or this party or that party. I wanted to experience like self-realization, self-discovery. And so the yoga traditions, I started opening the Bible at 18, read it for my first time. I traveled with some Lakota elders across the country doing sweats, visited some Benedictine monasteries, Trappist monasteries. I was traveling with one yogi from Bulgaria. And anyways, it was quite an adventurous few years, and especially 18, 19, backpacking across the country and just connecting with various traditions. And so as a seeker of truth, there's a Sanskrit term we use, saragrahi. Saragrahi means one who is interested in the essence of a matter. They're interested in the essence of a particular thing. They're not so much interested just only in the form, but in the substance. So as that kind of seeker I was, when I started to read Bhagavad Gita and practice this tradition of bhakti yoga, I didn't feel like I was giving up one religion and joining another religion. What I felt like was a clearing, just like the fall season right now. There's a nice description in the Bhagavatam. Just like the leaves are falling off the tree, and you start to see that kind of true form of the tree. It felt like layers of leaves just kind of peeling off and getting in touch with the true nature of the self within. And I had that experience whether I was studying the teachings of Lord Jesus, whether I was doing sweats with Lakota elders, whether I was visiting Trappist Benedictine monks and doing some of the ceremonies with them, or spending some time with this yogi friend of mine, this elder that I was traveling with, who introduced me to the Vedas and the yoga scriptures. Whatever it was, there was this appreciation of not joining something or converting from one to another, but more of a reawakening of something that's already there, or like a spark that's already been there. And the association of these different sacred teachings and the association of other seekers and teachers and practices was starting to fan that spark. It was starting to fan that spark. And then when I heard about this principle of Sanatana Dharma, which is Bhagavad Gita is based on Sanatana Dharma, it just ring true to me. It just really resonated. So Sanatana means eternal, and Dharma means one's occupational or intrinsic nature, that which cannot change. Dharma, dri, which is rooted, deep-rooted, which is solid. So we were sharing with the youths earlier, just like the Dharma of sugar. There's not like, sugar isn't racist, right? Sugar is sugar. It might come in a liquid form like maple syrup or honey or gur or jaggery or molasses or, bleached white sugar, which isn't so healthy. Jaggery and gur are good. But anyway, sugar might come in different forms, but sugar is sugar. Whatever continent you go to, you'll know sugar by its what? What quality? It's sweetness, right? That's the Dharma. You can say Sanatana, or at least for however long sugar exists in this cosmic manifestation, its Dharma is sweetness. And then we were sharing wherever you travel in the world, if you light a fire, you can light oak, you can light maple, hawthorn. If you get the wood and you cure it, and you get some newspaper or magnifying glass and you start to make a little spark and fan it and it starts to blaze, what do you start feeling? Heat, right? So the Dharma of Fire is heat. Whether you're in Europe, Australia, Africa, Asia, and we were saying even in Antarctica, if you pack up some wood and you go to Antarctica where it's negative 45 degrees high and the low is negative 60 degrees, you get that dry wood and you light it, you're going to feel the heat. Or if you're in South America or North America, whatever continent you are on, fire has this universal nature of heat. Or water. Wherever you go, water has liquidity, like that. Or gold is gold. Like Srila Prabhupada, this morning when we were listening to a lecture, he was saying, there's no such thing as Hindu gold, Christian gold, Muslim gold, Jewish gold, Buddhist gold. Gold is gold, right? Gold is gold. So similarly, truth is truth. And then someone asked him, so what is your relationship with Jesus? And he said, he is my spiritual master. Why? Because he's representing God. So therefore I accept him as guru. The principle is coming through. So Srila Prabhupada was like, there's no difficulty. He's also our master, right? Or whatever tradition one comes from. He said perfection can be attained so long as there's authentic, genuine, pure devotional service being engaged in. So again, this point of Sanatana Dharma, It's a little different. The term religion may have a connotation of a particular faith, and a faith can change. Just for example, I could be, like I was born in Japan, so I could say, I'm Shinto Catholic Buddhist, right? And then I could move to America and then convert to this religion, or I could move somewhere else and say I'm this religion. So faiths may change, but I'm still me, right? I'm still me. For those who are in 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, I think it'll be in your memory, and even for us who are a little older. In the laws of grammar, how do we say what's the proper way to say the following? And Prabhupada actually gave this example with some youths. He was sharing a talk. He said, is it proper to say I body, and we can't use the example of phone now, but back then there was no iPhone. But do I say I body, I bike, I house, I feelings, I mind, I thoughts, I friend, I chair, I drum? Or do I say my drum, my chair, my house, my feelings, my body, my thoughts, my phone? So for those who remember 8th grade grammar, which is correct, to use I or my? My. And what is it? There's a particular term. Possessive pronoun. All right. We'll go back to your 8th grade teacher and let him know you were a good student. So yeah, so obviously I'm not my skateboard or my skis or my tennis racket. Although if someone steals it, it hurts a little because I'm connected to it. But then we even say things like my body, my thoughts, my feelings, and my mind. So the natural question, without being a priest or a yogi or a mystic or a religious person, a natural question should arise saying, who is that my experiencing through the body? If I say my body and my mind, then the next question is, who is that self experiencing through the mind and through the body? And this is the experience I started having as a teenager, especially going out to the mountains, spending time in the ocean. There was this feeling that I was more than just this body. I'm more than just this person that's 5'5", half Japanese, half Spanish, 122 pounds, playing soccer, surfing, living in Orange County, born here, brown eyes. You know, we can check off all the lists according to our physical, mental condition. But I started to experience there seems to be something deeper. There's a deeper experience of the self, and that's what I want to experience. And then as I started studying these ancient cultures, I started hearing about these incredible wisdom cultures and persons who treaded the path and were having realization about divine culture and the human spirit. And I was like, that's what I want to experience. I want to experience that. And my mom said, that's for the people back then. And I said, no, it's got to be, we need to be, if it's something that's eternal, and something that was done in ancient times, and it was so valuable that books were written about it, and they're still being talked about thousands of years later, it can be experienced in the present contemporary time. And I want to experience that. So that's what I was looking for. I was wanting to be, without even knowing it, I wanted to experience what is a Saragrahi, what is an essence seeker, and what is Sanatana Dharma, what is our eternal duty. So just in closing, if we don't recognize that we're the soul or the spirit, because according to the Vedas and the yoga tradition, the dharma or the duty, the nature of the soul, just like we said, sugar has sweetness, fire has heat. The nature of the spirit is to serve. And we're ananda maya vyasat, we're pleasure-seeking entities. We're pleasure-seeking entities. So according to the yoga culture and all ancient traditions, ananda, pleasure, comes from service. Seva, ananda. Open mind, open heart, helping hands. When we engage mind, body, and spirit in service to God and the environment around us, then we actually feel ananda from within. But if we don't recognize that we're spirit, and we think we're just this body, then by default, because we're pleasure-seeking, ananda maya vyasat, we can't, like Max said very nicely the other day, trying to snuff out or deny or just push out desire. He used this nice word, integration. I like that term. If we don't integrate the senses, the mind, spirit in service, and if we only identify with the mind, what will be the integration? by default, since we're pleasure-seeking and we don't recognize Haribo, just 10 more minutes. Haribo. Kirtan's almost there. So, if we only recognize that we're this body, then because we're pleasure-seeking entities, then by default, we'll be almost forced, even if we don't want to use something or someone for our sensual, emotional, economical exploitation, right? If I'm just thinking I'm only this body and other people are their bodies, or the things around me are meant just only for my exploitation, then I'll have to use someone physically, emotionally, mentally, or an object for my ananda, for my happiness. Whereas if I recognize and cultivate the human spirit, then I'll find fulfillment in service. So then when I see another, St. Francis really had an expanded vision. He saw the plants and the vegetables and all living entities, the creatures, the four-legged, the two-legged, the winged. He saw them all as brother and sister. Maybe Dad can. I think his dad's downstairs. We'll just be a few more minutes. So then so St. Francis was on this platform. Srila Prabhupada recognized him as a Mahabhagavat. He saw with spiritual vision, so much so that he referred to the plants and animals and humans and all of creation as his brother and sister. So when we have that vision, then we start to see, oh, how can I be of service? Das, anudasa, how can I be of service? So as Srila Prabhupada would say, in your country, you have country persons, men and women, and you also have creatures and animals. They're also citizens. So they should also be respected and cared for and protected and not abused. So like this expanded vision, Sanatana Dharma, that eternal nature of the self, and that Dharma, that duty, is to serve. And to the degree that we're in that spirit of service to both the divine and to the environment around us, then we experience that yoga, that connection, and that fulfillment. We start to experience the bliss where people say, how can you be so happy? Like, what do you do for happiness? You're chanting, you're meditating, you're doing a little dancing, you're eating this feast, and like, you're not like just chasing around drugs and sex and rock and roll and name and fame and position, and like you're satisfied just with looking within? How can that be? What's in there? Like your bones and ribs and lungs and heart? You know, like what happiness is there within? And some people ask like that. And they might even think, people might say, you're crazy. There's so much enjoyment outside of us. You can chase it, but as Mick Jagger said, just can't get no satisfaction. You can try to find all the enjoyment, and then you can even ask good old Mick Jagger, you can't even get no satisfaction no matter how much you try. And then you have simple practitioners of spiritual culture from all over the world. They might just take their daily walks in nature, do a little bit of yoga, some meditation, some kirtan, some community service. They might distribute sacred food. They might distribute knowledge. They might give a helping hand to those who are in need. And they might do ceremonial services to the divine. And they feel this ananda coming from within. So Krishna says, one whose aim is inward, one who is active inward, and one who rejoices inwardly is the true mystic. And such a person attains liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. So this is one of the, you can say, basic principles of Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada would sometimes say clear consciousness. Just like when the sun rises, all the darkness is dispelled. So similarly, Krishna consciousness, it's not just a Hindu religion. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Vedas, and all the yoga teachings, you'll never see this word Hindu once, because it's a term that was given more recently in history about those who lived in India across the Sindh River, and they would just recognize the people as Hindus, the land is Hindustan, and then whatever they do, they call it Hinduism. It's no different than if you were in Kansas and you said, there's Colorado, those are Coloradians, and whatever they do is Coloradoism. It's very superficial, right? Hey, you're a Coloradian, you practice Coloradoism, and you live in Colorado. So this word Hindu is kind of like, oh, you live in India, you're a Hindu, you live in Hindustan, and you practice Hinduism. It's more of a cultural, geographical term. But the universal, the unifying principle of what came from India is what we call Sanatana Dharma. This universal, eternal principle based on recognition that we're all spirit, and that the duty of the soul, the nature of the soul, as much as sugar is sweet, is to serve the divine. And that original source may be referenced by different names. Just like when I was traveling with the Lakota, they would refer as Wakatanka, right? The Great Spirit. I was hanging out with Rastafarians and they would praise Jah, or Elohim, or Christos, or Allah. So many different, unlimited names, like waves of an ocean. Unlimited names glorifying that transcendence. And so in our Bhakti tradition, you'll hear the names of Krishna, of Ram, of Govinda, Hare, like that. So the names are universal, diverse, unlimited like waves in an ocean, and at the same time one. So going back to this young, what was his name? That young boy that said multiple things coming together as one? Max. All right. What's that? Max. Okay, so young Max, who he left earlier. But yeah, I think he's probably, what, 12, 13 years old? If even that, somewhere there. So when I asked, what does unity mean to you? And he shared like this, multiple things coming together as one. So just in closing, we'll have some kirtan and we can meditate on this oneness of culture. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, one great saint from the 1800s, he said there will be a future church in the world. In this future church, the walls of sectarian religion will break down. Those from all different traditions will come together and they'll praise the names of God. They'll come together beyond all sectarian divisions. And the future church of the world will be the church of kirtan. So kirtan means the singing, the dancing, and the glorification of the holy names. And that's there in every sacred tradition. There's sacred dance, there's sacred chant. In fact, in the Psalms, I remember when I was reading it, from morning to night, play the drums, the timbrels, the flute. Anyways, there's cymbals, the loud clashing of cymbals, from morning to night, and keep the name of the Lord on your tongue always. So this is kirtan. We have our cymbals, we have our drums, sometimes we do have a flute, and this is the vision of the great saints. The future church of the world will be this culture of kirtan, of sacred chant, musical meditation. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai.